yeah, I want to speak to you guys a little bit about engaging with not only young people but the community members. And we'll talk a little bit about Somewhere Too, but not kind of that it's a project for 16 to 25-year-olds, but how it can benefit businesses and local authorities and local communities in terms of them signing up their empty or underused space or events. So just briefly, Somewhere Too is a Legacy Trust Cultural Olympiad inspired project across the UK. There's 19 regional coordinators like myself all across the UK, including Northern Ireland. And they are busy all the time unlocking spaces that 16 to 25-year-olds can be the catalyst to use those spaces for free. And I say that in quite a creative way because the way I get around empowering young people to do things and pull off events is as long as the catalyst for that particular project or event or activity is a 16 to 25-year-old, then they can access that space for free. So space, I think, the definition of space is quite broad. So it could be a building like this, it could be a play area, it could be a car park, it could be a billboard, it could be a wall, it could be an event, it could be a website, a magazine, a newspaper, anything could be kind of, distinguished space. When people unlock their spaces and sign up to Somewhere Too, it's no difficult than having a photograph of the space, having some availability details and loading it up on the website. We then promote those spaces by region on the national website, and young people are driven to the website via lots of different social media platforms, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, a massive marketing campaign by Channel 4, who's another huge partner in Somewhere Too. And so on a daily basis, there are hundreds of actions coming through of young people all across the country asking for spaces. And then what happens is all those space requests are brokered by people like me. So I'd be the one who would then take the request, ring the space holder up and say, we've got a potential match. We've got a young person who wants to put on an event in your space. Does this tick your box? Are you happy for me to go ahead with that kind of partnership? Every single thing is done through contracts and agreements. So anybody who signs their space up, and this is something that the local authority love, so anybody who signs their space up, there are codes of standards for each party to sign and a contract. So it might be that a young person's using the space for a one-off, or it might be that they want to try and set a new project up and they want to pilot it with the view that if it's successful, they can then get money to pay for the space, and then it becomes a regular thing. So there's lots of examples of young people. On the website there's a young guy called Ashley from down in Brighton, and he's an artist, and he took over a whole shop with lots of different units in. His dream was to set up some pop-up shops for other artists like himself who were really struggling to pay for space. And literally they've turned that whole space around now where people are actually paying to use the units, and it's driving people into that area, whereas before it was run down, it was quiet, nobody was using it. So there's those kind of benefits. Also, because there's a massive data management system involved as well, everything's in there. So just say, if we signed up the Gazette as a space for people to write about, community events, become a young reporter, that kind of thing, and people were coming through to the project using your space, the Gazette, you could say to me in 6 months' time, Tina, I need to know how many people have used it, the breakdown of their age, and I could then send you a report to say, this is how many people have used your space, this is where they've come from, this is their age, this is their ethnicity. So that kind of is a big tick, especially when lots and lots of funding now for those kind of things and projects is kind of orientated around service user engagement. So, the more service users, the more members of the community using things means that you've got evidence there to be able to attract more funding and things like that. So, that's how businesses and local community spaces can be signed over. And like you were saying before about the fear of the unknown sometimes, that's a great thing about Somewhere Too. We have got so many live examples of where young people have taken over buildings, shops, brought back to life empty spaces that have been, you know, derelict for kind of years. Even massive property owners, huge property owners who have signed over something like 22.7 million square feet of space to Somewhere Too. So I went up to Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago and met my colleague up there, and there's a massive building at the side of Edinburgh Castle, which used to be used for lots of government housed initiatives like the job centre and stuff. They're all gone. The building is basically derelict apart from one service coming out of there. The company that owned that building have signed it over. So literally there's charities going in there, lots of young people doing lots of creative hubs. And that is an ideal space. For that company are getting all their business rates back. They've agreed to sign the building over for 5 years, so that people have not got to pay any rent. And I think the rent or a kind of contribution to that doesn't kick in till the 3rd year. So kind of they've really worked to put some kind of partnership together. So there are people up in Scotland that could help you guys, or the networks that you know, maybe their local spaces, maybe their events. I know you were speaking earlier about the alternative games, things like that. They could become events on Citizens Eye, on Somewhere Too, that we could promote, and literally young people from Scotland looking at spaces or events to get experience of photography, or, you know, perform at an event, or, you know, a place to publicise their art, or whatever it was, could actually see that those things are on a national scale and apply to be part of them. John spoke a little bit about before about the way in which we engage young people. I'll just give you some examples of the wacky things we've pulled off already through Somewhere Too. We were working with a young guy who's in a band. As you can imagine, playing drums in a house, not good, is it? Especially when you're a mum and you've got other brothers and sisters running around. He needed somewhere to perform, so we were able to speak to police about practicing in cells, empty cells that are not used anymore. We were able to support a young guy I work with called Will. He wanted to do a fundraising event for a group of young people that he works with, and we were able to secure him our central library in Leicester, which is a massive building, and they had a spooky Halloween sleepover there, where they did 10-pin pumpkin bowling with pumpkins and books. They reconfigured the whole of the library and made dens. They had, you know, a fancy dress. They were filmmaking, ghost stories. It was absolutely amazing. So we've been able to do really wacky things, but also at the same time, I had a girl the other day who came and said, I need a space to do a shoot for my university project. It needs to be a period building, big enough to have, you know, all the fashion shooting. So she went off and looked at lots of kind of museum spaces and things like that last week. We run a music event for up-and-coming musicians. So we had a young guy come to me and go, I already work in the industry, yeah, but I want to get into event management. So I'd like to do get a little bit more experience under my belt of doing that. So we secured in a really iconic kind of venue. It's a £25 million digital arts building that he secures on the first Saturday of every month, and we run Next Wave music event. So not only is he getting to do what he's doing, he's created an event that allows other young people to have their Somewhere To's as well. So every month we have lots of new young people who have somewhere to perform and somewhere to meet other like-minded people who enjoy doing the same thing. So sometimes it's about literally kind of creatively creating things that are happening and building things onto them to kind of benefit those people. Another big thing that kind of, in 2008, would you say? 2008, myself and John had a bit of an idea. I was a little bit act off at the way young people were being portrayed by the mainstream media. And I always say it, my daughter's 18 in April, and if I listened to everything that was printed or on the news, or I think every time she went out the door, she was either having sex, taking drugs, or mugging old ladies, because that's what the media portray our young people as doing. So myself and John, we got about 50 young people together back in 2008. We said to them, how about we set up a young people's news agency, and you have your own newspaper, and if you tell us the idea's a rubbish one, we won't speak about it again, blah, blah, blah. And they absolutely loved the idea. So myself and John went along to the local newspaper, had a chat with the editor and said, look, how would you feel about young people having their own newspaper? Being as though the guy before him was like, no, never, you know, we could never allow that. The new editor was very, very positive, and in 2010, we had our first young people's newspaper in Leicester that went out as a 16-page newspaper inside the Leicester Mercury. So there was like 170,000 copies on the third Wednesday of every month. So every single article, photograph in there was sourced, edited and produced by young people. The youngest person we ever had write for the newspaper was 4 years old. So what happened was it started getting a bit of a momentum, and there was quite a few young people who were coming to the sessions and stuff that had children. So what we thought was once a month we'd run little ripples that would, they were all under 7, and once a month they came and did a session, and we kind of made little templates where they got to fill in the blanks. So it was, where's the favourite place you like your mummy or daddy to take you to? You know, I don't know, what's the most important thing your parents can teach you, that kind of thing. And they were then made into articles and went into the newspaper. So it was really good for a little 5-year-old and 4-year-old to open the newspaper and go, oh my God, there's a picture of me next to the big steam railway and all that kind of stuff. So this was an absolutely fantastic way of engaging young people, especially young people who don't necessarily shine academically. So it was giving them a camera, giving them a voice recorder, letting them interview people, letting them take photos, but not necessarily having to have all that kind of lots and lots of qualifications, or, you know, making it really easy for them to do maths and English and things like that without them even knowing. And if that wasn't enough, what happened was, my consultancy is called Whatbox Participation, but the young people we work with love the name Whatbox so much that they decided that we should have a media project called Whatbox, as in, we own this box. So a Whatbox is exactly what you see. It comes with a laptop, voice recorders, video cameras, digital cameras, sometimes head cams, sometimes cameras that work underwater, whatever is bespoke to the particular group who are purchasing it, or community that's going to be using it, or school. And then what we'd go into that particular area, and we would work with young people for them to report in their local communities. So they'd write about their local play area, or, you know, clubs that were going on, or things that they'd like to change or they weren't happy about, and we would then make sure that they were submitted to local newsletters or the Wave. So it was about aspiring them to not only get involved and have a voice locally, write in a local magazine or newsletter, but then have the ability to write in Wave newspaper, which really kind of aspired them to get involved. So kind of from a little idea, and now it's we've had thousands of young people contribute to the newspaper, and it was a really, really positive thing. So using spaces like Wave so Wave is actually on Somewhere To as a space. It's a space for young people to, somewhere to get into journalism, somewhere to, you know, develop my photography, somewhere to, you know, do all those things. And it's about being creative with what you've got and using the things that are out there, just like Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. I mean, how many of you actually walk into a travel agent to book your holidays now? You know, you'll have a look online, book your holidays online, that kind of thing. It is the total shift into lots of people are shutting down their shops and selling stuff online because, you know, it is that powerful. So it's just about kind of keeping up to date with, you know, and engaging young people, they always want experience. So making the links with the local colleges and getting